Destined Rivals is here, and while everyone is hyped to play Mrnie's Grimmsnarl, maybe Rocket stuff, I'm more hyped to play Ethan's, specifically Ethan's Typhlosion. I'm not someone who likes to hop on the trend of playing the best deck of the format, even though you technically could say that, you know, I own Dragapult, so I technically own the supposed best deck of the format, though. I don't really play Dragapult anymore. I'd rather play something that is actually fun to play and I enjoy playing, and something that's different to what everybody else is playing, so on and so forth. So I decided to play N's Zoroark when Journey Together released, and now I've decided to pick up Ethan's Typhlosion because I think this deck is pretty good and has a lot of potential moving forward, especially considering some of the cards we've seen in Black Bolt and White Flare, such as Brave Bangle, which immediately solves a lot of problems for the deck, so when that releases, the deck's going to go through a completely different change. We also have the possibility of the Mega Pokemon, though I'm not really sure if Typhlosion will see a Mega Evolution. I'm pretty sure it's Chikorita, Tepig and Totodile that are the starters of Legends ZA, so they're probably going to get Mega Evolutions, but you never know. Plus, a single prize deck going into a free prize format is very, very strong. So I'll keep this intro short and just get straight into the deck and explain what the deck does as we go through. So for the basic lineup, we're playing 4 Ethan's Cyndaquil, 4 Ethan's Quilava, and 3 Ethan's Typhlosion. So just like with, you know, any trainer's Pokemon, you have to play the Pokemon that's specifically named Ethan's, so you can't just play any Cyndaquil or any Quilava, you have to play the Ethan's versions of those cards. Ethan's Cyndaquil is nothing to write home about though. Its attack can be pretty decent if you've been Badoo-locked or something, because it does 30 damage, but you have to discard an energy from it. It's like okay. Quilava is one of our main Pokemon, especially with its ability, letting us search out our main support card being Ethan's Adventure, which we'll get into later on. Plus its attack is also like decent-ish. Combustion for 40 damage for 1 energy is pretty decent in like the early game and maybe even the late game, especially if you're up against some high HP evolution Pokemon that you can't one-hit KO. Instead of promoting into a Typhlosion, you can promote into a Quilava and easily take the KO and save yourself a Typhlosion for next turn maybe. But our main attacker is Typhlosion with its Body Blast attack for 1 fire energy, does 40 damage, but it does an additional 60 damage for each copy of Ethan's Adventure in your discard. So with 4 Ethan's Adventure in the discard, we get a plus 240 damage for 280 damage total. Very, very powerful. Plus, with Quilava, we can very easily search out Ethan's Adventure to either use it or discard it with a myriad of different discard cards that we play in the deck. So obviously you want to play 4 and 4 because you actually do want to evolve into this to get your searches off, and I'm still a bit iffy on either 3 or 4 Typhlosion. I think 3 is perfectly fine because we have ways to get them back with stuff like Night Stretchers, Super Rod, and all that kind of stuff. Plus it just opens up like 1 extra space for something else we might want to play. But most builds I've seen play 3, there's very few that play 4, so for me 4 for 3 is enough. And then there's like a supplementary engine. We're playing 2 Dunsparce and 2 Dunsparce. I've been very on and off flip-flopping between Dunsparce and also Dracloak. I think both of them have their benefits and their downsides, and for the moment I think Dunsparce is probably the better version. Because with Dracloak, you get to look at, you know, top 2 cards of your deck, keep 1, put 1 back, and it sticks around every single turn, whereas the Dunsparce, you draw 3 cards and it shuffles itself back, so you need to get a Dunsparce back into play so then you can evolve into it next turn. But that's also a benefit because then it means your opponent can't target it down for like an easy KO or anything like that. It basically gets itself out of harm's way, and with the prevalence of stuff like, you know, Grimmsnarl playing Frostlass, that Dracloak's just going to keep building up damage counters from Frostlass and stuff like that, so it just becomes an easy target, whereas this puts itself back into the deck and also gets you some resources at the same time, which is very, very nice. We're also not playing the free retreat Dunsparce, mainly because if you ever promote this, you're most likely going to evolve into this anyway and it just shuffles itself back. But also Find a Friend is pretty decent. Let's just search your deck for a Pokemon, reveal it and put it into your hand, so if you can't really do much, you could at least like do that and then possibly get yourself a Quilava so then you can get your Ethan's Adventure and start going off from there. And then for just the other good stuff, 1 Badoo, because it's Badoo, 1 Shaman, this is also new from Destined Rivals. Its Flower Curtain prevents your non-rulebox Pokemon from taking damage while on the bench. That's only from damage, so damage counters like Dragapult will still go through and all that kind of stuff, but stuff like Mrnie's Grimmsnarl and Zoroark with Darmanitan can't put any damage on your benched non-rulebox Pokemon while this card is in play. Very, very strong considering that we pretty much only play non-rulebox Pokemon, so if you're against something like Mrnie's Grimmsnarl or Zoroark, you can put this into play and deny your opponent from taking sneaky bench KOs. Also 1 Victini, this is actually a pretty useful card. It basically boosts the damage of your evolution Pokemon by 10, which may not seem like much, but in some situations it actually is pretty useful, considering that, you know, there's a lot of high HP evolution Pokemon, so our 280 goes up to 290, and with stuff like Gravity Mountain, that can reduce 320 HP evolutions down to 290, so you can easily KO them. Also, if you don't have all of your Ethan's Adventures in the discard, it can help boost up your damage a little bit to hit some very awkward HP Pokemon, like Iron Hands has 230 HP, so with 3 Ethan's Adventures in the discard and this in play, you can hit 230 to KO those, so on and so forth. Plus, it also boosts the damage of Quilava by 10, so you can do 50 for 1 energy, which is also pretty decent. So you could hit something like a Dragapult or a Charizard and then bring in Typhlosion to easily, you know, finish up and take that KO, so on and so forth. I might bump this up to 2 when Black Bolt and White Flare comes out because it is stackable. So if you have, you know, multiples in play, if you have 2 in play, then you boost your damage from 280 to 300, which is really good. And then with any like tool cards that boost damage or any like supporters that boost damage, you can very easily achieve those higher damage numbers for those KOs. Very, very good card. And then 1 Iron Bundle. I'm still very 50-50 on this. It can be very useful for bringing something annoying out of the active or possibly bringing up one of forcing your opponent to bring up something that you can easily KO, like very late in the game. You may only need 1 prize card left, but you can't knock out the active, but you can knock out everything on the bench. So you can just use this, force them to bring something up and take your final KO. Or it could be useful for bringing something annoying out of the active if you really need to do that. Like, say they have a Maractus in the active and you don't want to attack it and KO it, you can instead bring something else up. Or if your opponent has a bench full of, you know, the most useful support Pokemon, you could use this and force them to bring one of them up so you can knock it out, so on and so forth. You may notice no Fezandipity EX. I am still very 50-50 on if to play it or if to not to play it. Most of the time when I played it, my opponent just immediately gusted it up and wanted to knock it out because it helps accelerate the game in their favour. It is very good drawing 3 cards every time one of your Pokemon's knocked out, but we have the Dunsparce for that really. That's like our main draw support. So, you know, just benching a Fezandipity is just our opponent is going to immediately want to KO that. Plus in certain matchups, it's just a very easy KO, like again, Mrnie's Grimmsnarl, ends Darmanitan, they can just attack those instead because Shaman doesn't protect it. So I think for now, I'm not going to play it because it just makes the game faster for my opponent because they can just get down to 2 prizes or boss Fez, knockout, and then they win, so on and so forth. I think it's more of a detriment to the deck than it is a benefit. And now we'll move on to the support cards, starting with for Ethan's Adventure. So this card is what you want to get into the discard, obviously, to boost the damage of your Typhlosion, but the card by itself is also pretty good. So it lets you search your deck for free in any combination of Ethan's Pokemon and basic Fire Energy. So it's basically a search free. It's basically your way to get energy, it's your way to get Pokemon. You can search any Ethan's Pokemon, so you can search Quilavas, Cyndaquils, or Typhlosians along with energy. Very, very strong. And plus you only need 1 energy for your attacks, so missing your energy drop actually isn't that bad. Plus, if you're in a situation where like you don't really need these, you can just like use your Quilavas, search them out, and then use something like Ultra Ball to discard them, so now you're boosting up your damage and also getting something out of the deck that, like, I don't know, maybe a Typhlosion, and then you can evolve it and keep some of your Quilavas around, so then you can use them again next turn to get more out and possibly use them, so on and so forth. Basically, once all 4 of these are in the discard, you're basically doing the max amount of damage you can do. Once all 4 of these are in the discard as well, it is a bit harder to sort of come back and rebuild up Typhlosions. You can obviously use stuff like Night Stretcher, so if a Typhlosion gets knocked out, you can promote Quilava, Night Stretcher for Typhlosion, Evolve, so on and so forth. You can get Super Rod, so you can put them back into the deck. The deck is obviously slow because you want to evolve into Quilava and then into Typhlosion, but your opponents are going to be taking 1 prize card every single turn, whereas you, in most games, are going to be taking 2. So even though the deck is slow, it can very easily pick up pace towards the mid and late game. And then for other support cards, we're playing 4 Arven, just a way to search out items and tool cards, because tool cards in this deck are pretty useful, especially, you know, HP boost, not HP boosting stuff, damage boosting stuff and all that kind of stuff. 2 Boss's Order, so we can bring up anything we need. 2 Research, just in case you've like got a pretty dead hand, so you can obviously do something like search out your Ethan's adventures and then research them away to boost your damage and get a fresh hand of 7, very, very strong. 1 Iono as a form of hand disruption. I was playing 2 Iono, 1 Research, but I very, very much prefer Research over Iono. 1 Lana's Aid. It's basically Night Stretcher times 3, so we can use this, get back like a Typhlosion and an energy and something else, and just go off from there. And then 1 Kieran, because I'm not playing a switch, so if we get locked in the active, this is either a switch or it can be a damage boost, and it is I believe a 30 damage boost. Indeed, it is 30, so against stuff like Charizard, it won't KO even with Victini in play, because you'll be hitting 320. You could play Black Belt Straining, which is a boost by 40, so you can knock out those higher HP evolution Pokemon like Charizard. I do think Charizard is the most annoying matchup just because it has 330 HP, so with Gravity Mountain in play, it only puts it down to 300. Which is really annoying, but with Black Bolt and White Flare, we can very easily fix that type of stuff, because the deck again will go through a pretty big change once that set releases. And then for the items, 4 Buddy Buddy Puffin as well as 4 Ultra Ball. Buddy Buddy Puffin can pretty much get everything out of the deck except for Iron Bundle and Shaman, because Shaman has 80 HP and Iron Bundle has 100, so in which case we can use Ultra Ball or something else like Artisan, which we are playing in the deck. We are playing Artisan, so we can just use something like that instead. 2 Night Stretcher and 1 Super Rod, so we can get stuff back out of the discard and into the deck or into our hand. 1 Counter Catcher, so we can bring up anything on the bench if we're behind very early into the game. 1 Rare Candy, so we can skip Quilava if we need to and just go straight into Typhlosion. 1 Earthen Vessel as a way to discard, and also another way to search energy, because purely relying on Ethan's adventure as well as our draw support can sometimes lead us to not drawing energy. I've had a couple of games where I've set up like a couple of Typhlosions and then I've used something like Professor's Research and I just don't find an energy, which is very annoying. It's just another way that we can very easily search our energy if we need to. And then 1 Redeemable Ticket. So this card says that you basically shuffle your prize cards, put them on the bottom of the deck, and then put the same number of cards on the top of your deck as your new prize cards. So this card is actually pretty useful, because say you've prized one of your tools that boost damage, or you've prized like 1 or 2 Typhlosions, or you've prized an Ethan's Adventure, you can very easily use this, put it back into the deck, and then put the cards on the top of your deck as your new prize cards. It's very good late into the game. I would not recommend using this at the beginning of the game, but when you've got like 3 or 2 prize cards left, this can be very strong, especially if you know exactly what those prize cards are and you need them. Very strong card that I would highly recommend people play, because not having a single Ethan's Adventure in the discard, having 3 instead of 4 against some matchups can't really knock out, you can't win. And then for tools, 1 Team Evolution. We want to go second in this deck and we want to make sure we get this into play. I have been thinking of bumping it up to 2, but I think there just kind of isn't enough space at the moment. But again, Black Bolt and White Flare, we will have a lot more space in the deck, and this will definitely be bumped up to 2. Rescue board, so in case we need to easily retreat something out of the active, like our Dunsparce or our Victini or our Shaman or anything like that. Again, this will be replaced for Air Balloon once Black Bolt and White Flare come out, because Typhlosion is 2 retreat cost, so you can very easily attach it onto that and then maybe like retreat it out into a different Typhlosion, so on and so forth. And then our A spec is a Maximum Belt, which boosts the damage we do against Rulebox Pokemon, specifically EX Pokemon, by 50. This is another way that we can hit those higher HP evolution Pokemon like Charizard, because Charizard is again 330, so even with, a boost from Kieran, we're 10 damage short, so this can very much help with that. And I would say this is probably the A-Spec of choice for now. Secret Box will be the A-Spec of choice next set, because we get Brave Bangles, so we don't really need to play this, and we can free up a slot, and we can play multiple Brave Bangles as well. But Secret Boxes are quite expensive now. It's like, what, 10 quid? Yeah, going to be annoying. I think it's purely because Mrnie's Grimmsnarl and Gardevoir are like the most popular decks and they play it. I purely think that's why it's become so expensive. Stadiums, 2 Artazons, so we can very easily get something out we need. It does kind of help our opponent against like some decks. We also kind of need it to get stuff out. And then 1 Gravity Mountain, which reduces the HP of stage 2 Pokemon by 30. So it does reduce our own Typhlosion's HP, but we're going to get 1-hit KO'd by most things anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But it allows us to put stuff like Dragapult down to 290, so with 4 Ethan's Adventure and Victini in play, that we can very easily 1-hit KO it. If you already attack something like Dragapult, you could like boss up something else, put this into play. The Dragapult on the bench will be knocked out, and then you can also do a knockout on the active and just basically get off to the races taking 4 prize cards. And yeah, pretty strong card. Probably going to bump it up to 2 again when Black Ball and White Flare comes out, because we can play Secret Box, so we can very easily search out. 2 and 1 most likely, considering that stuff like Mrnie's Grimmsnarl, Dragapult, Gardevoir becoming so popular. This card is going to become kind of mandatory for the deck, and you really want to get it in play. And then for our energy lineup, we're playing 5 Fire Energy, because the only thing we're ever going to be attacking with is Typhlosion, but we do have those extra energies in case we need to attach it onto something and use TM Evolution, or if we need to attach and retreat something. And that is the deck. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, what you think about this deck. Are you picking up Ethan's Typhlosion? What do you think of the deck? Are you having fun with the deck? Do you think it has room to compete in our format full of all these high HP evolution Pokemon and stuff like Mrnie's Grimmsnarl and all that kind of stuff? Or do you think at the moment it doesn't have its time? Do you think next set it will? Because Black Ball and White Flare again does give us some pretty good support for this deck, and has been rising up over in Japan as a pretty decent mid, like A, B, A tier. I think it's in A tier at the moment in Japan, but it does get a lot better with Black Ball and White Flare, I will say that. But yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Are you going to be picking it up? What build are you playing? What cards are you playing in the deck? Or have you decided to pick something else up from Destined Rivals like Team Rockets or Mrnie's Grimmsnarl, so on and so forth? Make sure to like, comment and subscribe, all of that nonsense, and I will see you in the next video, whatever that may be. Take care.